Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is your host, Made by Power, co-hosted with DJ Inferno on the Rhythm and Flow podcast.
Yes, sir, man. We are back for another episode, and this one we have another very special guest, man. We got our boy Caed in the building. Caed, how you doing, bro?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you for hopping on, man. Shout out to our boy Tech, man. He told us, a lot of great things about you that we had to get you on the podcast. So you were like, let's do it, man. Let's hear what this guy got going on and everything he's done. So let's get into it, man. The thing we do on here is first kind of just introduce yourself. So tell the folks where you're from, like what you do.
Absolutely.
And a little bit about your backstory. And
for sure.
For the backstory, you can go, bro, like, if you want to tell your whole life story, let's hear it.
Okay, sounds good. My name's Caed Folkestad. Again, thanks for having me. And yes, thank you to Tech for bringing me on. He connected some of the dots for me when I showed up to Portland. That was helpful. It was really nice of you. I'm 23 years old. I just graduated college in September, OSU. So I lived in Corvallis for 2 years. Prior to that, I was in the Bay Area. Went to St. Mary's College of California for 2 years. It's about 20 minutes from Berkeley.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sweet. I love that area. Unfortunately, I chose the worst time to go to college. I spent about 8 months there before the pandemic hit. So I got sent home pretty shortly after showing up to school. Made new friends, made new connections, started to feel comfortable, be myself a little bit, and then sent back to parents' house. I was living out of my old room and whatnot. I did that for a year. Did fully online school up until the start of my junior year, and then I transferred. Prior to that, lived in Ashland for the majority of my life. It's about 15 minutes from the California border. Really small, super rural town. Not a lot going on. Lots of old hippies, white people with dreads, and tasteless, as I would probably call it. But I was like itching to get out, so that was like my primary driver for going to California after school. My family had been there for pretty much the majority of my life. My parents moved. My mom's from Colorado and my dad's from Alaska, and they were both pretty young when they had me. So we always led like a pretty quiet, small life. When I was born, they lived like in the back of someone else's house, essentially. Then we moved into our first home. I lived with my uncle for a little while. And then we lived in the house that I spent the majority of my childhood in, about 17. That's not true. They lived there for about 17 years, but I spent about 15 years there. And I loved it. It was just, I always dreamed of doing bigger and better things. And I wanted to get out and see the world a little bit. So I was itching to do it, and I knew I needed to have a skill set to do it. I knew I needed to focus on my academics so I could go off to school. Yeah. I was pretty studious. I tried to do my best in school. I was in speech and debate, and was a club member and whatnot. I think the real pivotal moment for me was probably like fourth grade. I met my best friend. And he was always very creative, very business-oriented, even at a young age. My mom gifted me, it's called a flip camera. Cisco used to make them. They discontinued them, but it was like the very first all-in-one like camera and video recorder. I used to make stop-motion videos on there. And I think that's pretty much where I got my start with video. Shortly after, when I was like 12, I got my first skateboard. I skated for about 8 years. I stopped when I was 21, just kind of like aged out of it. My focus was on other things, so I didn't spend quite as much time doing that. But throughout high school, I was on SoundCloud, Instagram, like trolling through, trying to find all the good music and whatnot. I didn't grow up in an area where people were like really tapped into rap and whatnot, so that was kind of like my own personal interests. It was the skateboarding, the music, the video and photography. I knew somewhere down the line I wanted to do something creative, and I kind of knew that I'd have to focus on school to like get me out of state. So that was really my plan, and ultimately I ended up going to school in the Bay Area for I said like 9 months in person, and during that time started shooting music videos there and meeting people and starting to get my footing. And then when I got sent home, I felt a little stifled. I was like, I made all this progress. I got out. I was ready to do it. And then, I'm back in my old bedroom, and that could feel pretty defeating. But a lot of people experience that during COVID, so that's not like just my experience. Yeah. And I knew that was my time to kick it into a higher drive. So I ended up making these like stop motion videos. I would cut up magazines and stuff, and I posted the first one that was like, I think I spent about 2 weeks on it over spring break when I was at home for my first term of college during that like online period. And yeah, pretty much instantly, like all my friends were sharing it. Like people were receiving it well. I started to get DMs from people who had just like found it on their Explore page and stuff. I had never really considered that like social media could be the key to going somewhere else with my skill set. You know, I was very much focused on like creating art for art's sake, and I didn't really think about like content or about like how I could connect to people with outside of my own like personal network.
Yeah.
You know, I'd done a little bit of that while I was in the Bay Area, trying to like find artists who'd be willing to work with me and whatnot. But at that point, it was like I had to drive to San Francisco, and I had to bring my camera, and I had to show up and act professional, and I had to know what I was doing. With this, like all I had to do was send a DM, and then, you know, they'd give me the task, and it took me about 2-3 weeks at a time, and I'd crank out these videos and stuff. And that's kind of how I got my start. I did that first one, and then I sent a cold DM to Wi-Fi's funerals manager. His name's Vice. He was a cool guy. And yeah, he was willing to sort of do like a dry run for a video. He was like, we have this clothing brand called Living Dead, and we want you to do a video for it. And I did that, and I remember Wi-Fi had like 800,000 followers or something like that. And he posted the video, which I didn't expect. I thought it was going on the brand page, and he posted it on his main. Somebody that I'd been listening to since I was like 14, 15. So It was a big moment for me, but also all my friends from high school that followed them and followed me were like tagging me in the comments and stuff and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you did this and stuff. I think that was a big like confidence moment for me, for sure. Just realizing that like, you know, all it was going to take was a message, and I didn't have to physically be there to do that. But yeah, so from there, I just kept sending cold DMs to people that I wanted to work with, and kind of built my portfolio from doing that. Started like really getting into like physically shooting and directing videos like 3 years ago, but I've been doing video pretty much freelance for like 5 years. Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. I like it. It's cool. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of things that you've done in such a short period of time, sounds like.
For sure, and it's not all been for artists. You know, the second and probably the most popular video I've made in a long time is actually for Guayaki, which is the like yellow can yerba mate brand, and they're big on the West Coast here. It hasn't quite like spread elsewhere in the States, but like I'm even starting to see like billboards for it here in town and stuff. So it's cool to see it growing a little bit. But it was a big thing in Ashland. Like everyone from my high school used to drink them and stuff. It was like our alternative to drinking coffee and whatnot. They're like $3, so kids would pick them up from the 7-Eleven and bring them back to class. And we even used to have like all the clubs and stuff when they had to throw events. They'd have them like at events and stuff. So that was cool for me. I just sent off a DM to somebody and they responded, and now that page, like the actual Guayaki page, follows me and stuff. I used to be one of their ambassadors during their college program, and so yeah, it's cool. It's like, I think there was a lot of power in just realizing that all I had to do was shoot somebody a message, and they'd have the confidence in me to like do the thing itself.
Yeah, social media is a hell of a tool, man. I mean, especially nowadays. I mean, you can go from working with just your local people to somebody real big in like a matter of minutes almost.
Being able to put your content in front of not only those bigger eyes, but just like being able to create an online network is really useful. I've found that like the majority of the people that I stay in contact with now, like I have a pretty small in-person social circle, I would say, but like a lot of my friends online are doing bigger and better things by the day, and I see that working for them, and that continues to inspire me. And I think that's how it's grown for me, is like, you know, I tapped in with people in the music industry, tapped in with people who are local, and I think all of those things, the confluence of all of our interests together is cool. It's nice to see people being able to succeed without having to physically be places all the time too. And a lot of them are, you know, and it makes me want to eventually like get out of Oregon and go do something else. But for now too, it's like, it's, you know, put food on my plate for sure. I've been able to secure 2 part-time jobs as a creative videographer and content creator for companies that I love, just based on the freelance work that I was doing, you know. So that means a lot to me, to be able to go from A to B without having to, you know people off the bat. Because, you know, again, I'm from a super small town, like 25,000 people. Most people have never heard of it. And if they have, they've heard of like one thing that everybody seems to know us for. Yeah, it's been quite a trip, but it's cool to be where I'm at now.
No doubt. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to were you talking about that you were just, you know, small town kid, trying to make something out of nothing. I mean, going to where you're at now, I mean, it seems like you're following your dreams. You've been going at it, even regarding, regardless of the setbacks that, you've been through, whatever, you still push forward.
For sure. I think the resilience part, like, I try not to take too much credit for that, because I think everybody who lived through the pandemic understands that was a hard time for us all.
Oh yeah,
we all had to kind of pivot, for sure.
A lot of people have setbacks, for sure.
Yeah, I know people who started out doing one thing and came out on the other side in completely different career, lifestyle, or whatever.
Absolutely,
I'm definitely one of those people, for sure. I was just like your average college kid. I don't think I had anything to me that was like super special. It was definitely sweet to get out of state and meet a bunch of new people. When you grow up in a small town, everybody knows you and they know your whole life story. It was cool to be able to like go and reinvent myself a little bit. And even though I only got to do that for a short time, like now I understand that I get to continuously do that with social media and my work all the time. So I get to build who I want to be and whatnot. And videography has definitely been my lane for that.
Yeah.
But even then, I don't feel like I've hit my ceiling, and it's one of those things that's just going to continue to evolve and get better and better. And I get to wear more hats as time goes on. I get more comfortable and learn new skill sets. I can kind of step away from the small grunt labor and kind of look at it from more like a creative director's perspective or something like that. And
Totally.
I feel like that's just going to continue to happen.
I mean, you're just in the beginning of your career.
For sure.
It sounds like you're literally in the beginning.
Yeah. And again, I'm just stepping back from doing freelance work into like having a regular day job again, which feels great. But also for the longest time I was holding out because I was like, I know I can do this on my own. I don't need a job. And now I get paid to do the things that I'm doing freelance, like as a hourly wage. And, I get to, like I was saying before when we were chatting, like when I go home and I don't have to deal with clients or anything or worry about where my next paycheck's coming from. It's all taken care of. So that's pretty sweet. And it never really felt like an option for me. My dad, it was sweet to grow up around him because he has always sort of been in like the marketing world. I mean, to be frank, like when he started like on the production line at the company that he still works at. So he really started at square one. And as time has gone on, he's worn every hat there and has just, continuously shown up to the plate and knocked it out of the park and has continued to get promotion after promotion. And it was cool to see him go from being somebody who like was learning the product firsthand to being someone who was helping market the product and then run the department and then his, on a leadership team and whatnot. So I got to see that growing up a little bit and take those sort of marketing influences into what I wanted to do. But my mom is an artist, like her whole life, whether she's had odd jobs or whatever, she's always been making art on her own time. So it didn't ever feel like a choice to me. Like I always knew I wanted to do video like as my career. Yeah. And being able to see them both sort of pull off what it was that they wanted to do as a day job, I knew that if I just continued to put out work and be studious and stick with it, like eventually it was going to work out. Thus far it has, so that's been pretty exciting for me.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
It sounds really refreshing too, like, knowing that you were able to go from this small town to, going somewhere else and reinventing yourself.
Yeah,
it sounds
for sure.
refreshing.
I mean, definitely. I think also like, my story is not like singular. There are a lot of young people these days, yourselves included, who are using online platforms to make the things that they want to do and start to craft their own dreams. And I think we just live like during a very lucky period of time where we're all connected in a very like unique way. Oh yeah. Being given the tools that are super accessible. You don't have to be an expert to be able to make great stuff anymore. And that's like the barriers to entry are pretty much zero. So it's awesome. It's awesome.
I mean, these devices, man, it's just, people
they're powerful.
They're glued.
They're powerful.
They're glued.
I think that too, like
people are glued to them.
I get a lot of like compliments on my work, and I have definitely like feel like I deserve some of that credit, but like you don't have to be an expert to operate a camera. You don't have to be an expert to create things that are like purposefully kind of lo-fi either. Like again, the very first camera I ever had was like a discontinued flip camera from Cisco. And now I'm using, I'm not even using like a high grade, professional quality camera. For the most part, I'm using just like whatever I can afford. Yeah. It's really just about like your persistence and your ability to learn. I've spent a lot of time, like I'd consider myself self-taught despite having gone to college for a lot of this stuff. Cause like you don't learn a lot of the hard skills in college. It's not like you get, you're paying tuition to show up and learn how to edit videos. For the most part, when you take those classes, it's like the theory of how to do something, and you're talking about things on like a theoretical level, and none of that is super helpful. And I realized that like going into it, it was important for me to get the piece of paper at the end, but I spent the majority of college like at my computer teaching myself how to do this stuff. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that you got to do yourself. I like got out there and just did it. And I think some people are afraid to do that, and I'm glad that I wasn't, because I don't think I'd be halfway to where I'm at now if I hadn't like just gotten out there and tried, you know.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that you were using social media as a tool early on, but how do you use that now? Are you still
still
doing it?
It's similar. I think and I don't know if this is like a universal experience, but a lot of people who have who had a really successful start on Instagram now, I mean, the algorithm and everything is so different. Like it's difficult to get the amount of viewership and the amount of engagement that we were getting 2-3 years ago. I think they capitalized on the fact that everybody was home and that they were going to be, maximizing screen time, because everyone was looking for connection during COVID and whatnot. Now that we're all kind of back at it, they're having to backpedal and figure out how to kind of ease up on the content flow. Because I mean, at one point, we were all being encouraged to like post every day, and that was how you were going to connect with people. And now they've got too much content to deal with, and nobody's interested in their platform. So they've kind of changed like the reward system a little bit. Like when I used to post, I mean, I would just post something to like my regular feed and it would get thousands of views and hundreds of likes. Like I have a picture from my birthday when I was like 21 that has like over 1,000 likes. I don't get 1,000 likes anymore. I have to work for,
absolutely
400 or 500 likes on something. And even then that feels like the outermost reaches of like what I could get. But yeah, I'm still using it as a tool. I think for the most part, it's just like an online portfolio for the most part. And then I can send that off to people. I think that would be a big piece of advice for, young up and coming creators, is like, just post your work. Feel free to send those cold DMs. Like I said, like that's how I nabbed my very first gig. And I think, you might expect that those like big blue check accounts will never see those messages. And it's like, it's not true. I use it as a networking tool for the most part. And I think that has allowed me to kind of like jumpstart this career of mine, because otherwise, like had I not been on Instagram, I don't think any of this would have happened for sure.
Yeah.
It's
cool, man.
It's crazy that you say that too, bro, because I agree with you. Like, people think that these celebrities, these influencers, YouTubers, other people are just like so far to reach.
For sure.
But really nowadays, kind of going back to what you said, like social media, our phones being so powerful, all it takes is a cold DM. And like the cool thing about it is, like, if they ghost you, it is what it is. Yeah, it's not like you're, it's like you're not seeing this person, you're not actually interacting them.
Yeah.
It is a little different. Like, say you're, talking to someone and like you say, hey, I do this, and they just say, I'm not interested.
For sure.
Like that face-to-face rejection is kind of like discouraging. It's like it's a weird, awkward feeling.
Absolutely.
But just that cold DM where you don't even really see the person and they don't respond. Okay, it is what it is.
If you think about the opportunity cost of it too, like it takes a lot of effort to get in the same room as somebody.
It
like
does.
that.
It does.
But to be able to just sort of like from where you're at, and especially like in my case, I was at
in the middle of nowhere,
my hometown, my rural hometown, and I sent that message to a blue check account, and I got a response.
Yeah.
I think, and I remember that time really fondly. Like I had a beanbag set up in my room, my laptop was next to it, and I was just editing that video like every night, because I knew I had nothing else to do with my time. Like all my friends from college, they were all back at school. California, like it took them a while to lift the ban on like returning to school.
Yeah.
And by that time, like the roommate that I had my freshman year, all the people that I wanted to live with, they had a new housing situation, and I was just like, I was starting to think about like the program that I really wanted to pursue, the stuff that I wanted to do with my life. My mom also worked at a university in Oregon, so I got an in-state reduction in terms of tuition and whatnot. So just financially and otherwise, it made more sense to go to OSU. But it was definitely a big shift for me, for sure. It was hard, but I was just sitting there at home thinking like, man, I'm probably never going back to California. What am I going to do? I was like, I got to work on this video. So every night I was up working on the video until like 2 a.m. I'd pass out and wake up at 10 the next day. Nobody's waiting on me. So I'd get right back to it. And then at the end of that, I put together a list of like 50 people that I knew eventually I wanted to work with, or the people that I admired, or people that I listened to frequently, so that it was like sincere, Because I've learned that too. If you reach out to somebody who you genuinely don't have any connection to, or you don't like love, there's definitely like a disconnect there. But if you're talking to somebody, you're like, I've been listening to your artist music for 10 plus years. I know the word to every one of their top songs, and the songs that people don't know too. Those things like don't matter to those people as much as just being like, hey, I'm competent and I'm ready to go. But it helps for sure. So like, finding those people who are within your bubble, who you actually genuinely like that can be that first step to just making that connection. All it takes is just being like, hey, I love this artist, like let's work. And a lot of the time they're down for it. So, yeah.
No, absolutely, man. I mean, I think at a certain point too, people that you work with in general, whether it be like, you know, for your job or like for whatever, you know, entrepreneur endeavors you have, if you really want to work with that person, you have to like them. Like, you know, it's kind of going back to like, you know, business relationships. Like, you're going to do business with people, but you also got to kind of relate with that person as a human being. Like, you know, you're not going to want to work business or do business for the most part with people that you don't really like or can't, you know, vibe with, or, you know, the energy's not there. So it's true. You definitely have to have those, like, you know, bonds or like just resonate with the person.
For sure. And I think too, like, you know, I think about like the format of a music video or like an ad in general is like you either really have to understand the artist or understand what it is that they're driving at, you know, their like visual universe. Because if you make something that's like off brand for them, there's no way they're going to approve it or the label's going to approve it or whatever. Same with an ad for a company. You know, if you don't understand the product or their target audience, no one's going to like, you know, appreciate what you've come up with, because it's going, you know, it's not going to reach their marketing goals or whatever the hell it is that they're trying to do.
You got to know what you're working with.
You got to know their niche.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And when you find those people too, I mean, it doesn't take any real effort to like form that connection. I've found that especially with just like working with like local artists and stuff too. I'm pretty selective with the people that I end up working with, but for the most part, it's like I don't have to love their music as much as I just love them as a person.
Yeah.
You know? And if I can understand what it is that they're trying to do, you know, that the music comes pretty secondary to all of that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The vision's important.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you have those conversations with people, and sometimes you can tell they're really out of touch. You know, they're like, we're super disillusioned. They're like, oh, this next song I'm going to drop, I'm going to be huge. Like it's all about to happen. The people that I work with that I really love working with are the people who are like, it's not happening today. It's going to be a while. Let's keep at this. Let's you know, make another video. I've got this lined up. You know, they're being strategic and they're thinking about things realistically. And I've always been sort of pragmatic and thoughtful like that. And so when I meet somebody who's not off in La La Land thinking they're a superstar when they're not, you know, I appreciate that about them. And they're trying to make a concerted effort to do something real in the real world. I think that's, you know, those are the friends that I want to keep, you know, for sure.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I got a question. I want to take it a little bit back because you guys were getting into a pretty good conversation. Couldn't really chime in, but you were saying earlier, you know, when you first, like, taking it way back, when you first, you know, started to do videography, like, how did you know it was videography? Like, did you try music? Did you try, like, a trait? Like, how did you know, like, videography or just video editing, creative, that was, like, your niche? I know you talked about, like, the 4th grade story where you got the camera and you felt like this was it. But, like, were you doing, like, music classes, paint, like, anything where, like, maybe, like, you know, you get the question, it's like, was there any other avenues, or you just knew it was videography?
I don't know. I don't know how that came about exactly. I think it sort of just naturally arose from a skill set I already had. Like, the minute I picked up the camera, it felt instinctual. And
just like a feeling.
And maybe just a feeling, but also more than that, it was just like everything that I made, you know, even my own mother was like, this is great. I love this, you know, and this is small amounts of encouragement early on to definitely push you to explore more. Like, where could this take me? What am I going to do with this thing? And you start to develop, like, I feel like really what it is I had good taste outside of doing that. Like, whether or not I had those fundamental skills or not, like I've always had great taste in terms of like the movies that I consume or the media that I like and whatnot. And I feel like whether or not like my videos are awesome or not, I definitely know when I see a good video, you know? And I think that has just come from years and years and years of consuming a lot of media. And when I picked up the camera and I was like, okay, now it's my time to be able to make those things for myself and choose like how I'm going to construct this world visually. That was exciting for me, you know, like there was nothing else to, and you know, it's like a pretty classic small town trope to be like, I wanted to get out and I wanted to figure out how to make my own world, but definitely like felt like a gateway to just like pure imagination. I remember when I was a kid, like that's pretty much what all my friends and I would do is like play pretend and stuff. And then when we grew up a little bit and the real world came into play, a lot of us, I feel like we're pretty disillusioned, especially in a small town where we're like, all right, what are our legitimate options for career paths and otherwise? And you know, I have friends who are very talented and very smart who still haven't found their niche because they're trying so hard to find like a very specific technical thing to do with their life. And I got lucky in just being like, I think I have good taste and I know how to make videos. Like, you know, and maybe that's not necessarily like something I'm great at, but other people are able to kind of glom onto the stuff that I like too. And it's maybe just like that collective feeling of being like, I'm making something that other people are relating to. And that other people are appreciating consuming. And I think right now, especially, you know, with like we were talking about this, just like infinite content dump where there's stuff being made every day that's just totally meaningless and crap. Like when you make something really good and other people see it, they're like, oh, that's cool. You know, so being able to make things that excite other people too, and excited me in the process of making them, has always been important to me. Yeah. I don't know though. I think too, like you mentioned, it did kind of come into play at a really pivotal time in my life. So like I was just consuming a lot of great stuff. Skateboarding, I just got like super interested in that all of a sudden. Music, I was following that, but wasn't necessarily making any of that myself. So being a lover of things, but not necessarily doing them all yourself too, can definitely influence like what you end up creating, whether you're the person doing it, you know? For sure.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, man. Another question I had for you, because you talked about going to school. You went to school for filming, or like fine arts, essentially.
Yeah. When I showed up to school, I was on sort of like this fine art, digital art path.
Okay.
I had received a scholarship from the art department at the first school that I attended.
Got you.
And I was one of two people, and typically they'd only select one, but that year they couldn't choose. So I had shown them my video and photography portfolio, and they awarded me a scholarship to attend. So I received some really sweet, like special treatment essentially from the department. And they pushed me to do really great stuff there. But it was a small program, and I think ultimately like they didn't have enough resources for me. The professor who oversaw all of that ended up leaving at the end of my sophomore year when I was still online too. So I was like, I don't necessarily see a purpose in going back. But when I switched schools, I entered the new media communications department, which is kind of a mouthful, and I don't know if it really means a whole lot. But you know, we would dissect like popular media and talk about how it worked and why it worked. And I think a lot of that has really influenced even the small stuff that I do now. So like, I make a music video or whatever. I know the first 10 seconds is the part that has to grab people, right? And otherwise, I'm not thinking about that. Like I'm trying to dissect my own videos in a way that is definitely influenced by all the learning I did in college. And that's been super helpful for me. But yeah, that trajectory has not been like super linear. It's been kind of all over the place.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, bro, because I feel like we've had this kind of conversation debate with like a lot of just different people that we've had on the podcast. You know, especially in the music realm, I would say majority people really don't go the education route, to be honest. It's like, oh, I'm going to do music, I'm going to do this or nothing. So I'm curious on like why you decided to get a degree. It's
For
like,
sure.
And why you just felt or didn't feel that you didn't need to get the degree. It's like, or I'm sorry, let me.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying though.
Yeah, like
for sure.
why did you feel like you had to get the degree versus like, oh, I don't need a degree, I already know how to make videos, what I need that paper? What was that decision like?
Both my parents, like neither of them graduated on a traditional timeline either. So, we talked a little bit about it before the pod. Both my parents were very young when I came into the picture. You know, my dad was younger than I am now when he had me. So neither of them had the opportunity or the blessing to go to college. And my parents have always, I don't know if they had an expectation for me necessarily to go to college, but I always had an expectation for myself that I would see my education through, at least to a bachelor's degree. And again, I definitely felt like a little lost in college because you're right. Like when you're in a creative route or you're exploring a skill set like that, you don't necessarily need like some sort of certificate or otherwise to prove that you can do it. Like if you can show up to work and do it. I even chatted with my dad, again, who works in like a marketing department. Neither of the people who were working for him doing the things that I'm doing now had a college degree. Both of them had a high school diploma or maybe went back to school later on. And I didn't learn that until later on. So I was like, man, why am I doing school? Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once you're in college too, you start to realize that like the structure of learning and stuff is really important. Like just all those routines, like constantly improving your writing skills. I was in a communications department, so a lot of that has to do with like, how am I bettering the media that I'm making so that it meets the right audience and it does all the things that I want it to do, and learning about that from a technical aspect. Those are lessons and guidance that I received from professors that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I started to recognize the value again after that, first initial year of like online school and feeling like, man, maybe I don't need to go to college anymore. But yeah, totally. There was a time where I was like, man, I'm going to drop out. This isn't worth it anymore. I'm draining my parents' pockets, and neither of them ended up going to school until later on. And, they're both kind of exploring like non-traditional careers in their own way. But yeah, I mean, once you're in it too, it's like, oh, man, I really want to see this through. And I knew too, like I was the first person in my family to graduate college on time, like on a traditional timeline.
Yeah.
So that was a matter of pride for me too, to just be like, I'm going to see this through for them.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to say that it was all on them either, because like, again, I was learning a lot of really valuable stuff that was helping the skill set that I was trying to pursue in the real time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. I feel like there's a lot of people that, that, like you said, don't go the traditional route, especially creators,
Yeah.
Like talking about like music artists, videographers,
Yeah.
everybody just kind of picks their trade and they're like, let's roll.
Definitely.
But I feel like from what I'm getting from you is that you had a sense of like, I'm going to use this as a way out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be here. How do I get out of here?
Yeah, totally.
Like, that was a source.
Yeah.
And you knew that was like a legitimate way.
Yeah. There's a very serious like pipeline that happens in Ashland to the rest of the world, where kids are leaving Ashland and just progressively moving further north. They leave Ashland High School and they go to, Corvallis or Eugene, and then they end up in Portland. And in my own way, I've ended up doing that too, and I'm happy with that because I did it on my own terms. But I knew that if I wanted to go out of state, like I had to be studious, and I had to have the grades and the AP credits and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, it proved out, to be pretty valuable to me, because it ended up, paying my way through my first 2 years of college outside of school and getting to experience California. And ultimately that's where I ended up filming those first couple of music videos and meeting artists there. And that stuff was very crucial to me coming home and having that drive and that fire to be like, all right, I got to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Oh, go for it. I'll say, what artists like did you work with?
Yeah. So that was kind of fun for me too, is like, St. Mary's, there's a graduate, an alum from St. Mary's who was kind of a budding rapper at the time. And we all followed him, and he was posting on his story about, I need an assistant, I need a videographer. And I didn't have anything to show him necessarily. I had like one music video that I shot in high school, and it was more like just a passion project, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But I sent it off to him, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm here. Like, let's get it done. And he was willing to take me on to do it. Stunnaman02 is his name. I definitely I have a lot of respect for the guy. We definitely lost touch over the years, but I mean that happens with people. But he's got his own budding thing going on. He signed to Empire like 2 or 3 years ago and had a good record deal there, and he had a connection to like all the sports team there. He had an anthem that they would play at every game and whatnot. So I got to be part of like the fundamental rise of an artist. I got to see him kind of on the ground floor when he was trying to make it. We were filming music videos in his apartment or getting all the people in the neighborhood together. In fact, I feel like that was really like the biggest confidence booster for me. Was after class one day, I drove into San Francisco to shoot a music video for him, and he's like, I've got the whole neighborhood here. He's like, I've got like 100 people here, and we're going to go to this one particular neighborhood that we all grew up in, and there's this little parking lot. We're going to pull back the gate. We're going to get everybody up on the stairwells and everybody in the parking lot. We're going to pull up some cars. Then a guy pull up with like a dirt bike, and he was like ripping it up, doing circles and stuff. And this director who he had been collaborating with for a while already had a camera and a stabilizer and stuff. And he was like, hey, it's your time, man. And he was like, you're going to get in there and film. And he's like, usually I'd be the one filming and directing and stuff. He's like, you just get in there. I'm going to put a hand on your shoulder and show you where to go. And he's like, everybody here is here for you. Like, they're going to be paying attention to you. Most of the time when you're making a video, like the focus is on the artist, but literally the camera is like, the center of attention in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of pressure on me to do a good job. Right. But also it was just like, for a minute you get to be the star. And, they opened a door for me that, was totally invaluable. But, just like those initial couple of experiences, like just getting to go to the city and figure out how the camera worked, and working with a real artist who had connections in the San Francisco area to other artists and other video creators, etc. There's a really popular videographer from the Bay Area, Tyler Casey. A couple of people were connected with him and were trying to put me onto him. And so it's just, it was like I at first, like for the very first time, had a community of people who were willing to kind of put me on, and that was really helpful for me. But yeah, then coming back again, I felt super stifled because I was like, man, I just started to get some momentum in the Bay Area. People are DMing me, asking me for this and that, and I'm no longer there. Like, so I busted a couple of missions to go back down, like during COVID too. Like, I would go stay with my friend in Sacramento, and I'd drive the next 2 hours down to go visit my friends in Oakland or whatever and film a video for the day, and that was cool. But eventually, yeah, I had to pivot a little bit and start doing it all online on my own terms. But those initial couple of experiences for sure, like they got me into the club at like 19 and stuff to go film recaps and stuff. Like, that was really cool for me. And I was just like this lame, dorky white kid from Oregon, and I was like, this is crazy, right? For them, it was pretty standard, and they were like, this is the lifestyle that you could end up like really accessing with this tool. Like, you're not just doing this through the camera, but it's also like an extension of you. You know, like, this is your skill set. You could be this person. People are it's almost like a magnetism. Like, once you have that skill set and you can show people what you can do with it, they're going to start knocking down your door wanting videos, and they're going to pay for them too. So like, I think just having that knowledge coming back to Oregon was really helpful. Sure. Yeah.
I feel like you came back and you just surpassed everything like around you, like content wise. Like, you just
felt
laps,
like,
right?
Yeah. I mean, I just felt like
you did it.
It was
all,
so dead
like,
here.
yeah.
It was so quiet, and I was just ready to do something bigger and better. And again, like, I think there's a pre-existing scene in Portland and in the Oregon like landscape in general that I just wasn't aware of, like, as a kid. And now that I'm here too, I'm like starting to get tapped in with that and chat with people from the town. And I've got a couple of frequent collaborators here that I really love working with, and I'm starting to meet new people every day. So that's been great. Again, I'm just kind of extrapolating what I learned there and bringing it here in my own way and trying to be my own man finally, and have that confidence to be like, I could be that person, So yeah, it's cool.
How is the scene out here in Portland?
It's kind of a mixed bag, but I never want to like talk down on it, because I don't really feel like, as much as I am like a native Oregonian, it's also like not my scene necessarily. I didn't grow up in Portland. I'm not a city kid, so coming here I kind of feel like a guest. And when people, I learned that, especially like having been in the Bay Area for that time, is like, maybe this isn't my arena necessarily, but these people are ushering me in and let me do my thing. And there's a symbiosis that's happening here where I'm helping them create great content that they otherwise can't seem to access. There are some really awesome videographers here, though. Like, there are some really great content creators, tech involved, included. There are a ton of people here who are making great stuff. So I don't want to sound like, arrogant, like I walked back in here, I'm the best videographer in Oregon, because that's not the case at all. But I definitely feel like I have a fresh perspective. I also have a very different network than some of the people here, and I think that's kind of why some of them admire me. Like, I have that California connection. I have a bunch of friends who are in New York and LA and have connections to big labels and cool pages. Like, I have some followers that are, got the blue check, and for a lot of people, that's all the difference that it makes to be like, I want to work with you.
Right. No, for sure, bro.
Yeah, no, it's cool though, because I get to give them that like audience too. Like, as much as I feel like I've grown that for myself too, it's like every time I make the conscious decision to post a video that I did for somebody here or otherwise, it's like it's going in front of a lot of great eyes, and they're getting that reach that otherwise is very hard for them to do on their own. And, I'm still building that for myself too, but it definitely feels like a partnership when I work with people, or I choose to work with people. So yeah, it's great. I love the scene here, as much as I don't really feel like I'm a part of it necessarily. I try to be when I can, but I also like, I'm kind of moving out of freelancing as much as I can to kind of that day job, or making very selective choices about who I'm working with. So I don't want to just be like, I'm open and ready for work, everybody hit me up to do videos, because it just doesn't work that way with me, at least personally.
Right. What brought you to Portland after you graduated from Corvallis? Like, why did you, was it a mindset like, I'm not going back home? I'm sure, but like, what brought you to Portland as opposed to going back to Cali or something? Yeah, no, it was just very natural. My junior year of college, I started dating my girlfriend, and she was going to UO. Okay.
But we were both from Southern Oregon, so we were like back home for COVID, right? And we met, and then both went back to school. And then, I would bust the drive back and forth from here to Eugene, or, from Ashland to Eugene. And then, as time went on, like, we formed a stronger and stronger bond. I was in Corvallis, she was in Eugene, and then she graduated and moved up here for a year. And then when I graduated, I was like, it's just, the natural next step is moving up here and moving in together. So that's what we've been doing. But also just like, I don't know if I'm ready to leave Oregon yet. There definitely was that impetus to like get out and go to California and, move across the country, you know, like go see some stuff. But that time, like coming back, I realized like I really turned my back on my home and doing all of that. Like I have friends and family here, and I have like a home base, and I missed that while I was gone too. Like I realized I was really on my own out there, and being here, like, you know, my best friend from high school, I got to live with him for 2 years, and that experience, I wouldn't trade for the world. You know, as much as it sucked to like have to be home during COVID and like edit all my videos on my laptop in my like, you know, teenage bedroom basically. You know, I got an extra year with my parents, you know, and I otherwise wouldn't have gotten that. So
true.
I really, you know, I try to see everything in a positive light, and I realized that there was a lot here that I hadn't explored yet. And I've got my whole life to move other places and do bigger and better things. And it just made sense for me during school to like stick around. And now, who knows, I'm kind of a free agent. You know, this is my first year living in Portland and not having any other commitments other than just being here and doing what I can. But already, you know, I work at Arc'teryx Portland over on 23rd Ave. My job title isn't explicitly to do videography or photography for them, but as time has gone on, now they're allowing me to do that. So within, you know, the first 6 months of working there, I ended up helping them create a bunch of content for their social media. And then shortly after, I got hired by Portland Gear. So I worked there part-time as a creative videographer for Marcus Harvey, the owner. You know, so I'm just realizing too, like, as much as it was kind of a default choice to move here, I have a lot of friends and a lot of connections and a lot of opportunity here, and I want to explore that and see where it takes me for sure. Yeah, Portland's a cool space. I mean, I think a lot of people too were nervous about like what would end up happening with Portland during COVID and the riots and stuff.
Absolutely,
things are changing. I think the city starting to turn around again, and there's like a real community feel here. Both of the companies that I work for too are really into community outreach and holding events and stuff, and I just think that for me at least right now could be pretty lucrative. And also I just love people too, so it's good to like get out and do all that. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's been sweet.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the reason I asked about the whole videography scene out here is because honestly, I know like the music scene, I feel like that's a little bit more open, but it's the behind the scenes that I don't feel like people don't really see or pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I mean, for like people that you've worked with, or there's only a selective few that have some kind of recognition, or at least some people recognize, you know. Yeah. So I mean, it takes a lot of people, and it takes a community, you know, for that to go up.
Yeah, definitely. And like, you know, like I said, as much as I don't really feel like I have a lot of motion or whatever, as compared to some people here who are just trying to get their start, like, you know, every thought counts essentially. And like, if I do a video for somebody who has 1,000 followers, putting them in front of my, you know, almost 3,000 followers, which is still like not a crazy large following, is pretty helpful at the end of the day. And I'm happy to do that. So I am trying to be the dot connector a little bit for some of these people to, you know, be bigger and better. But also, like, there's a lot of budding talent here that people aren't recognizing for sure. And also a lot of people who just aren't confident because they don't feel like there's like the infrastructure for them to go up here. Yeah. And, you know, I think it is like a collective realization that like we have to do that ourselves, you know.
Have to. I mean,
yeah.
There's a big belief, you know, like, oh, I can't make it out of Oregon, or I can't make it out of Portland. But at the same time, I feel like in the day and age where we're at, I mean, I feel like the power is still depends on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we were talking about social media and how helpful that is. And I mean, it really just depends on the type of work you put in.
For sure.
Like, are you putting in work, or are you just sitting behind a screen, just scrolling and kind of just messing around? Like, what are you really dedicating your time to?
I have to have those conversations with people all the time too, because you know, they think there's like you know, they're seeing what's working for other people who are already like really deeply embedded in the music industry or are already famous in some capacity, and they're like, all right, you know, every month they get to put out a new single, and all they have to do about it is post about it once, and people go crazy. And that's not a marketing rollout strategy at all. You know,
you gotta have a strategy. You gotta have a plan. It's gotta have a meaning and a vision behind it, right? I mean, anybody can just record a song and put it out, but I mean, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. And honestly too, it's like I love the work that I do, because it ends up being this sort of thing where I get to create art that complements someone else's art. And I get to have, again, I try not to be overly selective about the people that I work with, because I want to invite new people in and give them the chance to grow too. Like, I don't want to judge somebody at their first attempt at something, but there are a lot of people here that I choose to work with who have been making music for a long time, or who are making really great music who just don't have the audience yet, or maybe don't have the content to match it, don't know how to visually elevate themselves and make themselves into the artist that they want to be. You know, for instance, like one of my best friends who I work with really frequently is like in person a very nervous, quiet guy. But like, he could be a superstar, and I know it, you know. And so I think he's trying to do the work on himself to do that, but I'm also helping him like create the brand around himself so that other, you know, that process becomes a whole hell of a lot easier. All he has to do is get those bookings and show up and be that person, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm a testament to that, because I'm a pretty quiet, regular dude, and yet like I get to do all the stuff that I want to do, and people seem to think that that's really cool. It doesn't feel cool all the time, but all I know is that it takes a lot of that concerted effort and thoughtfulness and having a vision for what you want to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can be your authentic self without having to, you know, totally reinvent the wheel to be somebody, you know. Yeah.
Thanks. And what do you focus on now? You know, your two places. Do you are you focused like on marketing, or what is it that you do specifically?
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit before, you know, I'm helping them sort of capture the community events that they're doing, helping them do like product rollouts. When we get new product in either of the stores, you know, I'm helping them do product photography, videography. It's mostly social media content creation. And that's like a very different speed for me. That's kind of been like a pace change for me, because like, you know, I'm working on like long form content where I'm working on like a 3-minute music video that I can pour weeks into. And they're like, we need a reel today. Like, you need to go out and shoot something. And we want to post it by 3 p.m. Yeah. But I already have that pre-existing skill set, because I've been working with people who are like, hey, the song drops tomorrow or whatever, and I don't care what time of day it is, I need you to fix this XYZ in the video and get it back to me. And, you know, I used to bust my ass. I'd be up till like 6, 7 in the morning finishing videos sometimes, and crash for a couple of hours and check in the morning and make sure everything was good and go back to edit the things that they needed fixed. So like, I already have that like intuitive skill set to be like, you know, whatever you guys need, I'm ready to do it right now. So I think people recognize that as like a hunger, and that at least has secured me one of those jobs, because, you know, just in those initial conversations, I think the things that people admire about me the most is just like the willingness to like make stuff. And a lot of people just need somebody who's competent and makes good stuff and is willing to do it whenever, you know. And it's consistent. Yeah. That's the big thing. Man. I mean, I live, eat, and breathe this thing, and I've been doing it for a couple of years now. So like, I'm ready for it to be my, again, like we talked about, like this has never felt like a choice for me. This is just the thing that I do, and I'm happy to just show up and do it every day. A lot of people too are like, you need to value yourself more. You need to charge thousands of dollars for this thing. And I'm like, but I also don't want to avoid opportunity, right? The flip side of that coin, though, is I have had to do a lot of like soul searching about it, because like the music videos are not super lucrative a lot of the time, especially with budding new artists. Like they either don't have a budget, or, you know, if it's going to take them a long time to get you the budget, and you're uncertain about when that paycheck's going to come in. So for a long time, I was really resistant to the idea of getting the day job and kind of settling in. I think a lot of people consider that like selling out, especially when you're trying to make it, right? But for me, it's just like, I'd rather have financial stability. And also like, I'm not sacrificing what I want to do. I end up getting to show up for these places that are really great members of the community and make great products. And I get to make cool stuff for them every day. And honestly too, like it's always been about the portfolio. Like I always want to be able to make something that I can take to the next job and be like, this is what I'm capable of. Why don't you hire me for more money, right? Absolutely. So it's all about bargaining and all about thinking about how you're going to make it into something later. And I wasn't always good at that, but I'm trying to be better about that. And I still want to make music videos. I still want to continue to help out people as much as I can. But, you know, there is this kind of like balancing act that you have to do, where you got to be smart about it financially and about your time. And, you know, I don't have any regrets about how I spent the last couple of years. I definitely have learned a lot of hard lessons working with artists, especially, but, you know, it's live and learn. Yeah, live and learn for sure. And exactly. I'm young. I'm really young. Like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like exactly what you guys said. You live and learn, you know? Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
What has been your favorite, like, music video, event, just favorite video you've ever shot?
Yeah. It's actually not one that I shot. It's like, it's one of those things that I have a hard time talking about, because I can't really show it to people, and I don't really know how to talk about it because it never came out. But I have 2 unreleased music videos with Trippie, which is awesome. And like, that is kind of the initial reaction that I get from people a lot. It's like, wow, that's really cool.
That's crazy.
But they'll never come out, you know, like they're circulating the internet in some like leaked version of them that was like half completed, probably something from a Dropbox or something. But yeah, I got contacted by Wavy Lord, who is a really popular videographer who's been in the game for a really long time in the Florida scene. But neither of the music videos were really like, I don't think they were ever intended to get like a wide release. They were like running gun music videos that were shot at a Airbnb, and Trippie's just kind of like fucking around the whole time. And there's nothing about them that screams like, all right, the label's going to approve this, right? But I was young and I was like, this is cool footage, and this is one of my favorite artists. I've been listening to this person. So I was in high school, and I'm just going to give it all I got. And he gave me like, I think it was like 2 days on the first video to get it back to him. It was like cut, FX, color, all that. And again, you got to bear in mind, like, this was very early for me. So like, I'd barely even done music videos. Like, I'd done those couple of videos for people in the Bay Area, and I was starting to do like the stop motion animations with the mixed media and whatnot. But like, I had no real practical skills to like make an actual fully fledged music video, and especially not one that like a big record label would be like, yeah, that's cool, let's post that, right?
For sure.
But yeah, I had 2 music videos with Trippie Redd that I think are really awesome. I get to collaborate with friends on them. I have my friend Matthew Brown, who does, if you've ever seen where somebody will run a video back through an old analog TV, and they'll film it on a 4K camera. Yeah, and then you sort of overlay all of that footage over it. So yeah, I have all this cool like synth footage where it's like a glitching old TV over top of footage of Trippie Redd that I edited myself, and it's like a mashup of like 3 songs. The second one at least is a mashup of 3 songs that were supposed to be released on not his most recent album, but the album prior. And the first one, which I think I edited when I was like 20 or 21, ended up just coming out last year.
The song did?
The song did.
Oh.
With no video, obviously, but like, it's cool to be able to like listen to that song now and be like, I did the music video for this, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's like, it's kind of a hard thing for me to talk about because neither of them came out. It's not like I can go around showing people them and being like, oh, I have a music video with Trippie Redd, even though it's the biggest thing I've ever done in my entire like videography career. But I always keep that in my back pocket to know that like very early on when I had no practical skills, somebody still trusted me enough to like work with one of the biggest artists in the world, you know?
Yeah.
So that for me is always just like a real big confidence booster and just like a testament to my ability to network. You know, I made a connection with someone, he loved my work, and he was willing to put that footage in my hands. And so I'll take that to the grave, being one of my biggest accomplishments, even though nobody's ever seen it, you know? So, but that's cool. Yeah. I love that about it.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, bro.
For sure.
How do you feel about that though? Like, do you think what you know now, as far as just like a business aspect, do you think maybe like the knowledge you know, like you could have been like, hey man, like let's make this happen, or you think that still was out of your control, like even with the knowledge you know now?
Hard to say. I think like, again, it was very circumstantial. He was like, you've got 2 days to edit this thing. Again, most of the footage is just like Trippie running around at Airbnb with friends. They're all drunk. He's like taking vases off of the wall and like holding it over his head and stuff. Like, none of it's serious, you know? So I don't know if like a record label would have ever approved it. But I do wish it had gotten some form of release, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
But not for me, like not in a selfish way either. Like as a fan too, like knowing that there's a music video for a song, and but you know, I've been in it long enough to know that happens all the time.
Yeah, I'd say like, it's probably not the first and not the last unreleased music
artist
video
out there
artist.
Never see the light of day, for sure.
Yeah.
So I try not to be like sad about it. Again, it was like somebody trusted me to take on that big challenge, and like I stepped up. I stayed up till like 4 a.m. 2 days in a row trying to make sure this thing was perfect. It looks terrible when I look at it now. I'm like, hell no. Like, I see why this didn't come out, but at the same time, like, I gave it my all, and
at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nah, that's crazy, man. I can't believe, you know, that you see work that you're like rushing and you're like, I need to get this out, and then it's just like it was never even serious. Like,
no. And honestly, like, I'm sure it was like from his perspective too. Like, I'm certain there, you know, was some intention to release it.
Oh yeah,
otherwise
absolutely.
They wouldn't have taken the time to shoot it.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I know a lot of
like
that
one
stuff.
of those moments, you know, you're like, yeah, let's drop the video, and then you're like, maybe not.
I also had no idea how that stuff worked. Like, I imagined I was going to shoot it back to him, and it was probably going to come out like the next month or something. I mean, that song didn't end up coming out for almost 3 years. You know?
Yeah.
I was gonna say a lot of these artists are like got it in the vault
For sure,
and it's gonna be in the vault.
I mean, there are millions of dollars behind some of these people too,
Yeah.
and I just like, you know, again, I just didn't have the knowledge to understand how that all worked from like a technical perspective. So You know? Again, I can't be mad at it, but it was cool. Yeah, I still have those videos. They're on my computer. Like, I'm the only person. You know, I'm probably one of like 10 people who have that video. That's cool. That's crazy.
Yeah. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's cool.
It's wild.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say? I mean, obviously, that's probably one of the best, not best, but like one of your favorite, you know, artists that you looked up to, that you collabed with. But do you have any like dream collabs?
Yeah.
Let's do like locally, like here in Portland.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, on a bigger scale, like who you trying to work with? Whether it be like an artist, company, other videographer, editor, like who's on your list that you want to work with in the near future?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the first would actually be, this is a cool connection. I love McConan, right? McConan. I've been following McConan since I was in high school. He posted something when I was like 15. He was like, best comment gets a follow back. And I remember I was in Colorado visiting my aunt and uncle, and we were at like dinner or something. I like had my phone under the table, and I like commented some stupid, I don't even know. It was like a reference to some lyrics of his, right? And immediately I saw blue check follow. And at the time I had like 500 followers. I was in high school. It wasn't a big, you know, anything. I had no intention of ever being a videographer. I hadn't thought about the music industry, any of that. It was just my aspiration to, you know, try and make a connection with this artist. Yeah, I got to follow back. I still have like in our DMs, like McConan, like liked my graduation pictures and was like, congrats, bro, and stuff.
Oh, that's
But
fire.
now, like years and years later, like he lives like a couple blocks from me, and I see him around sometimes. And you know, we were just DMing the other day, and like I'm sure we'll get some work in at some point. But yeah, I've always loved McConan. You know, who doesn't know Tuesday, right? But
Yeah.
also,
Facts.
like he, you know, is like a big member of the community. Like he's got his brand Martha's. You know, I just think it's cool to like rep something local like that too, who's also, you know, got such like a storied history in rap too. Like I remember watching like the old Vice documentary they made about him when he was still living in Atlanta too, and there's like cameos from all these crazy rappers and stuff. Like I think people nowadays like maybe neglect to realize like how big of a artist he is and like how much history he has in the rap scene for sure. But he's so low key nowadays, so you can barely like keep tabs on him. But yeah, I would love to do a video with him. I'd love to just continue collaborating with a couple of artists that I work with frequently. I'll plug both of them. Sage, Prada Sage, love Sage, has probably some of the best music out of Portland. He has connections to the industry that are just like absolutely insane. And I hope something is realized for him, you know, in that space, because he really deserves it. You know, he fucking works his ass off. He has great music. And then my boy Danny, VVS Phantom, VVS. He makes great music. I think he's like working on the confidence aspect of it, like learning to be an artist and all that. But his grind is like so authentic, you know, like he'll just send me like Snapchat videos of him like on his computer making a song, and he'll send it to me, and I'm like, bro, this is better than like 75% of the stuff that I hear out here. And you're just like messing around, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah, definitely continue to work both of them. On like a bigger scale, there's like a lot of artists that I love. There's a couple of people who are coming out of Atlanta right now that I think are awesome artists. Skate Star, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Southside Silhouette is going to be a big artist. Until Japan, he's like the most secretive artist out there. Like you can't even find a picture of him out there, but he's got really great music too. And they're all starting to bubble. It's cool. Like I've been following all three of them for a really long time and like watching as these like, you know, rap blogs like continue to like pick up their songs and start to post about them. And so I've known for a while. I have this post on my Instagram you guys should check out. It's like a 12-minute video format interview thing. It's all text though. Like I had a bunch of creatives that I love write in answers to questions for me, and then I animated all the text, and I hosted a couple of songs from great producers that I love. Just kind of shed some light on like what it is that they do, what they've done, and you know, try to get the word out there for some people in my audience about them. But yeah, I think I just would love to continue working with cool people. But one of the people in that interview, he was talking about those artists like really early on, and that was like almost 2 years ago now. So it's cool to see those people like start to go
where
up.
they're at now.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
going up.
Yep, it happens for sure. And like if you can spot it early too, I think like as much as I would love to toot my own horn and say I make great stuff, I also think I just have a good eye for like what's gonna work, and like being able to recognize that early has helped me make a lot of those connections, because I get in with people when they're still small, you know.
You just know.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, you hear it. Like,
you just hear it.
You know,
You just know.
For sure. It's kind of intuitive.
Yeah, it is. Exactly.
And you can tell when it's authentic with people too. They're not like, it's not some cash grab. They're not trying to make it fast. They'll do it the long way. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that doing it the long way is the more authentic way. I'm trying to do that myself. Yeah. Like, but those big experiences, right? It kind of sucks that none of that stuff like worked out, or that nobody ever got to see those things. But I know that I have bigger and better in store for me in the future too. So.
Yeah, but those are just like building blocks. Though.
For sure. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just gonna.
And even if it's a failure from one perspective, like, it's also a great learning.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got there. You got that.
Yeah.
You made that happen. I mean, what's stopping you from doing it again?
For sure.
At an even bigger scale.
And I probably wasn't ready, you know. Yeah. And now I'm feeling pretty ready. So
yeah, it's funny how it works though. Everything comes full circle eventually.
It does, and as long as you just like keep good energy with people too. Like, I could have been upset about all those things or burn bridges or whatever, but I mean, it happens all the time with me. I'm an editor, so like, I'm used to my work needing revisions or never seeing the light of day. I have a lot of unreleased videos. I have other videos with, you know, admittedly like smaller artists, but still like cool people who are popping right now, and they'll probably never come out, but I don't let that like soil my relationship with whoever ended up putting me in the position to try and do that, because they wanted to help me, you know. So yeah, keeping those lines of communication open with those people mean that later on, like, they'll come back with bigger and better opportunities too.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, no, I feel like you know, like I mentioned earlier, you're just in the start of your career.
For sure.
The people you're working with now, I mean, it's only the list is gonna get bigger. I mean, it has.
Yeah. Definitely.
Your list has grown.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're 23, like, you got so much ahead of you, you know.
I honestly like kind of that my curve is like backwards too, like where I started like really high with big artists, and now I'm working with like small artists, and I get to kind of experience that for myself, like growing organically with somebody who's just starting, you know, rather than trying to like work with somebody who's already established, because that's hard. You know, you have to be like a huge industry player to be able to make it in that regard. But for me, like, I have nothing to lose now. I've got a great skill set. I've already got the connections, like, you know, and now all I can do is like help myself and help other people.
And you're always one connection away.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Isn't it weird? It's
yeah.
Like, I know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy.
And I do. Like, that honestly has helped me more than anything else. Like, we were talking too about how the last event I just shot was that Brett Logsdon party in Corvallis. Shout out to them. It was a fun time. But yeah, I just like, I know the videographer who knows a guy, and they used to be roommates, and, you know, then I get to be there, and I'm, you know, all access shooter for the event. And
that's awesome.
Now I get to meet all those people too, like Brett and all of them. And yeah, so, and for me too, that's cool, because like, I'm from Oregon, so, you know, naturally it should be me that's connected with them, but I'm not, you know, and those people who are out-of-staters, like, that I know better are able to hook me up with people from Oregon, and now, like, I'm going to be able to be one of those people who, like, is an hour away the next time they need me, you know, so.
Yeah, exactly.
It creates a lot more opportunity for me, totally.
It takes the connection for sure.
It does, yeah.
I mean, you just build that organically, though.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, the first year that I went, like, I don't think I did a great job, you know? And so, like, this year showing up and just being like, all right, I got to put on my game face for a little while and impress some people. Like, it went a lot better, and, you know, I made a lot of good connections, made a great video out of it, and now I get to walk away from that experience feeling good, knowing that it's going to open more doors. Yeah.
Shit, exactly. I mean, you've done it before, and now you're like, okay, how can I sharpen this up?
For sure.
Yeah, be better.
Definitely.
That's fire, man. I mean, your whole story, just like, you know, where you started versus where you're going, you know, the trials and tribulations that you had, man, it's really inspiring. And I'm sure, like, people that are listening to this, like, someone, you know, maybe it's from your hometown, maybe there's like a kid that's like, oh yeah, like,
that would mean the world.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. And that's really why we want to do this podcast, man, and this platform, is because, like, everyone has a story, and we want people to be able to, like, just hear your story and hear it from your, you know, vision, hear it from your mindset, and just how you went about things. So it's really inspiring, man. We appreciate you for coming.
Well, thanks.
So we're going to go into this segment. It's called What's in Your Bag. So we're going to ask you, like, 5 things that you have on a regular basis, but we're going to switch it up on you. Okay. 5 things that you need when, like, you're doing, like, a video shoot. Like, what are 5 essentials? And don't say, like, camera, because we know you're going to have your camera, but, like, something that you may not, you know, people may not think you need, but your 5 essentials when shooting a video.
Cool. A speaker. You will run into that more often than not. People are trying to play the song out the car or play it off their phone or something. Bring a speaker, man. Okay. Bring a speaker and make sure it's charged. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've shown up and just been like, fuck, my speaker's dead today or whatever, or nobody brought one. Yeah, that can definitely dampen the mood, especially when you're just trying to, like, play some music and have fun. Like, bring an extra SD card. I can't tell you how many times I showed up to a shoot and been like, damn, my SD card was in a different camera or whatever. And that's literally the one key to the kingdom for recording. I'm sure you guys have probably bumped into something similar at some point, or a card runs out or whatever.
Batteries there.
Yeah, extra batteries. I mean, I don't want to list that as one of my 5, but yeah, extra batteries. Bring extra everything. Could help. Bring some lights. I feel like people don't recognize the value of like really simple hacks to high production value. It was like one of the very first things I invested in was just a really shitty pair of Neewer panels. They're like $100 from Amazon, and they're definitely not worth $100. So they don't work great and they don't last for very long. But yeah, that was able to take like what I was doing to the next level really easily. Yeah, learning to play with light, knowing how to make something look cinematic without it actually being cinematic. I think a lot of people don't understand that it's a lot easier than you'd think. And you see these like movie sets, right, where they have a million white panels and they have lights in every corner of the set and they've got 10 different mics and they've got someone with a boom mic, and it's like you could definitely do that and produce something really incredible. But there are a lot of ways to hack that and get to that quicker on a budget too. And I definitely had to realize that. I also think like an alternate camera. I don't know, what am I at, 4 or 5 already? In my bag over there, I have my camcorder. This is something tech does too. Bring in multiple like resolutions of camera, different ages of camera, different lenses. Like all that stuff adds a lot of flavor to your videos. I know like some of the newer movies that are coming out right now that everyone's applauding, they're using like vintage lenses from, the 1900s that are in need of restoration before they can even be mounted on these cameras. They're having to do all sorts of things to like make them compatible with newer cameras, but they give it a look that's just like so familiar and nostalgic and people are loving it. I think there's a big push right now to kind of like explore what could be done with video, but also like what has been done. Like, we're in that like 20-year cycle right now where everything that was hot in the early 2000s is going to be cool again. Camcorder stuff is freaking awesome. It looks so good. And you don't have to do a lot to it to like make it look good either. I've seen a lot of people who are just using camcorders to like record events and concerts and stuff who are like really going up right now. Like this kid just followed me like yesterday who was regularly getting like 2,000 or 3,000 views on a video. And he posted some recap of like a Don Toliver concert with his new Hardstone like album rollout and all that. It has like 300,000 views, and he's like gaining new followers every day. And like from my perspective, I'm like, that's cool because I know that camera probably didn't cost him more than $50, $100, and it doesn't take a lot of know-how to use it, but it does take some taste and some knowledge to like make that look cool. Yeah. So yeah, like maybe an old camera or having multiple cameras is definitely a cool angle to take things. What else? Definitely bring a snack or some food, or like be willing to go out to eat afterwards. I always forget too, like when you show up to a video shoot, like so much of it is energy. Like if you're not in a good mood or they're not in a good mood or whatever, like it's not going to turn out the way you want it to. If you're rushing things, like clear your schedule, be hydrated, bring a snack. Like I know all that stuff sounds pretty rudimentary and simple, but you find you show up to a shoot with an artist and they're like, I didn't even eat breakfast today. I'm about to face this wood and we're going to do this video. And midway through it, they're like totally zoned out and not even like paying attention anymore. Right. And it's horrible. Like, you all laughing about that, right? Relatable. Like, but it's stupid because like, you're paying me to show up and make something that everyone's going to see. You might as well bring your A game.
Yeah.
Right?
You got to be in the right headspace. And you're right, man. To be in the right headspace, you got to be, properly hydrated, proper nutrition.
I feel like people my age, especially like don't quite understand that yet, who haven't like become fully fledged adults. They're like, what the trick to being in a good mood all the time or being healthy is just like making sure you hit all your meals. But like stuff like that's pretty simple. So yeah, bring a snack.
You know what the best snack is?
Tell me.
Cigarette and Red Bull.
But that's what I'm saying. You're the problem.
You're the problem.
Right.
Oh man.
I bet most people my age would say that though.
What's your go-to snack though? Like, do you have something like you take into your shoots regularly? Like
I love like peanut butter filled pretzels. Those are good. Quick protein, nice. Low carbs, easy calories.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else good. I'm not like a huge snacker. I also am really bad about like breakfast. So the simple, easy meals are my favorite. I drink shakes a lot. Like just bringing like a good shake with you could also make the difference for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, breakfast is a myth, right?
Breakfast is a myth?
Oh yeah, it's not the most important meal of the day.
No, what is?
No, it's not.
What is?
Trust. The reason why they started doing that slogan is because they wanted to sell more like milk.
Really?
Yeah, that's why they got.
I can believe that.
Yeah, they wanted to push more milk and eggs and all that. That shit was failing. It was a failing business.
That's funny.
And so then they're like, we got to boost this up. All right, promote that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
I believe it.
That's why they made the slogan. Got milk? Come
Really?
on, bro. It was failing.
Bro, what documentary did you just watch?
I went through some TikTok.
I can see it. I've always heard that
That's my rant.
that like carrots don't actually contain enough beta carotene to like improve your eyesight. That was like a myth that they told people in the army to like get them to eat their vegetables while they're out like deployed. Like actually, like it'll help you see better at night. It's gonna keep you safe or something. Like I don't know if eating a carrot every day is gonna do that for you, but that's what they said.
Yeah. Doctors used to prescribe cigarettes.
Yeah, bro.
Like, come on.
They used to administer heroin and stuff. Who knows?
I don't believe anything.
Who knows?
All right, that's my rant. I'm sorry, y'all.
That's funny. No, that's a solid 5 though, man. I mean, I think fellow videographers can probably relate with your, essential 5. And
this is a basic 5. I think this is just
basic, but like you said, some like even like the snack and the food thing, like it seems simple, but people just kind of goes past their head sometimes. I
think too, like when you're operating at a really low level and you're charging people for great work, you want to show up and be prepared and be the best that you can at what you want to do, and you want to be professional about it. So like, yeah, preparedness is pretty key to doing all of that. Like having all your ducks in a row. There've been a lot of nights too. I'd also say like advice for people who are coming up, like make sure you're prepared. Like preparedness is key to success in a lot of ways. Like, make sure that if you're charging somebody a couple $100 for something, that you have all your batteries charged the night before. Like nobody wants to feel like they're getting scammed out of their money, and vice versa. You want to feel like if you're getting paid, you did a good job, or you can be proud of the work that you made. So
thanks. Yeah. I got a question though. Before we move on.
Yeah.
What camera are you using?
Right now, oh man, I love talking about this. It's I really feel like for the up and coming videographer who doesn't have a crazy budget to buy a nice camera, you should definitely invest in this one. It's the DJI Osmo Pocket 3.
Is that the new one that just came out?
Is that like the little like
that's
stick?
the little one,
That's
right?
what you use to record your content now?
It's an all-in-one. Yeah, it's the one I've been using for work. It's the one I've been using for personal projects.
Wow.
It's like $520 base model. It's like $700 and something with all the accessories. But it really is like, I feel like it's the key to someone who's looking to do content creation. Like maybe it's not powerful enough to create the nicest video out there, or deliver, like a high budget video. But, certainly like for my purposes, like going back and forth between like this sort of corporate world and also my own passion projects, it shoots 3K vertical footage at 60 frames per second, which is better than an iPhone, so that you already have a leg up on somebody in that regard. It also has different color profiles. So all the things that like you want from a mirrorless 4K DSLR that you're going to pay $2,000, $3,000 for, just the body of, in some instances, like you already have those pre-built into the camera, so you can do all your color grading after the fact, even if it's only going to Instagram as a 9:16 reel. And then all you have to do is just flip that front-facing screen, and it becomes a 4K camera that can shoot up to 120 frames per second, which you, again, will probably pay something like $2,000 for on just the body of a camera.
Yeah.
It shoots super wide, which is great because, like, otherwise, again, you have to buy like a really nice prime lens that's wide. And you don't really have to do a lot of tweaking to make it look great. So I've had a lot of success in just like showing up and whipping this thing out. It's all in one, right? So it's a stabilizer plus the camera. You're getting real-time feedback on that little tiny monitor screen, which is, it's like pretty comparable to like the LCD screen on a regular camera or whatever. You have a lot of control over what you can do with it. It has face tracking, like all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I've been using that for videos for a couple of weeks now. I literally just got the camera. Prior to that, I was using like an old Panasonic Lumix. The Lumix line's like great cameras. Like Panasonic makes great cameras, but it's difficult to like keep up with how fast technology is improving. So, I mean, every year, you're trading in and buying a new camera to like keep up with the newest fad or whatever. I think there are some really great cameras out there that I'd be looking at. I know like the Sony FX33 or whatever is definitely hot. I've seen a lot of really incredible work with that. I have a buddy who lives in Vancouver who has one. I'm waiting to like go out and just do like a test shoot with him. But again, it's like for the average person who's not in the position to invest $3,000+ in just the body, and then have to buy all the accessories and lenses and stuff, like it's kind of a hack to be able to get a camera that does everything that you want it to do in, you know, that range, price range, and otherwise. Yeah.
It's not budget friendly.
No, not at all. And actually, like I thank my lucky stars all the time that my mom used to work for a university, because the camcorder that I have is actually from an old like photo and video kids camp. It's like the camera's from the 80s. I don't know if it was used in the 80s, but it was sitting in a storeroom at this university. It hasn't been touched in ages, and so it's in like pristine condition. But yeah, it's like 30 years old, and it has just such a crisp, cool look to it. And I mean, all the other cameras, like I said, you have to buy a bunch of lenses and stuff to be able to zoom. And if you're in like a concert setting or whatever, it's really hard to get those like intimate shots of an artist. This camcorder is such a hack, because I could be at the back of the crowd and still be like zooming in on their face and like have a tight frame where it's like body up and them performing, or have them in the crowd or whatever. And all I have to do is just, maneuver this little camera. So that's been a pretty sweet hack for me in the last couple of years too, to be able to use that. So again, I'm like a big champion of, it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing to look great. I've never had expensive gear. I literally got like a desktop like 2-3 years ago that actually has some processing power. I had like a gaming laptop my parents got me in high school. Before that, I had to use a cooling fan under it just to be able to edit my videos, because it would start to like hiss and freak out and shut down. But yeah, it's all those like struggle experiences that'll make your stuff look great later on too.
Yeah, absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah, you don't take it for granted,
No, not at all. And the day that I have like one of those crazy cameras in my hand, like, and the world's gonna be mine for sure.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah,
I love talking cameras, man.
And also, like, I don't know, if you have a camera that shoots decent video but shoots good photo, then be a photographer for a while. Like, I wasn't, I got into college on a photography scholarship. I'm not a photographer by trade. I don't like market myself as being that, but I do take a lot of photos and I know how to edit them. I think that, like, as a skill set is super lucrative, and a lot of people don't realize that too. Like, if you know how to frame and take a nice photo and then be able to do some like post editing on that, whether that's a little glam, a little fix up, or if you're like just doing an overall like color tweak on it or something to make it look Instagram ready, like, people will pay you a lot of money to take their photo if you can do that. Yeah. And if you get creative with it, you know how to use Photoshop and otherwise, like, that's a whole nother lane to experience and make some money off of for sure. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I just love this whole area. Like, it's just, you don't need the craziest thing to get started.
No, not at all.
No.
I think a lot of people think there's like a big barrier to entry for these things, but it's about how much you're willing to do for it. I invested like $900 in a pretty basic camera when I was a freshman in college, and from there I've used the same camera for like 4+ years and watched everybody else get the cool the red camera, the Black Magic or whatever, and they're making awesome videos, and like, I wish I could be at their level, but for my purposes, like, it suited me, and I got things done.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's when you make your best stuff, is when you figure out what you got.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just
the more you have to like make your shit that's not great look better, like, then you can, when you get the good shit, you're gonna be really good.
You're gonna be fire for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I also think too, like, if you're just starting, you should decide and differentiate your skill sets a little bit. Like, you want to be a videographer, decide whether or not you want to be a shooter or an editor, because those are very different things. If you can do both, you become a lot more lucrative. People will pay you a lot more money. Yeah. But also, that's a lot of work, and you have to invest a lot into the camera setup, the editing setup, like all that stuff. So for a while, like, when I realized I wasn't going to be able to shoot anymore, like in person, and I had to do it all on my own, the editing setup became pretty lucrative for me. And again, like, working off the laptop with the cooling fan and stuff wasn't awesome, but I'd struggle through it. I'd stay up till like 2 or 3 a.m. like doing the video and waiting for the computer to boot back up afterwards and stuff. But yeah, if you can really learn an editing software, you can forget about the camera and just let other people send you their really good footage. And that's what I ended up doing for a long time, is just letting people who were great shooters, who had great cameras, send me their footage and then make something cool out of it. So that's definitely another helpful tip for somebody who's just getting into it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. That's what's up. Well, I really admire that. I admire the work that you're doing and everything that you're doing to get to where you're going to be.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of the advice that you've given me and our viewers here is very helpful. And, whoever's watching this and really trying to decide whether to shoot photos, videos, or edit videos or whatever, or get into that kind of community, I feel like watching this video, giving so much great advice.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Heck yeah.
It's just important for everybody to remember, like, I still don't know what I'm doing. And yet people are willing to pay me to do it on a daily basis. So, like,
I mean, you got here, right?
Yeah,
you
exactly.
got here. We don't know what we're
yeah,
doing.
you wanted me on for sure, you know? Like, I must be somebody, right?
Yeah, facts,
Exactly,
bro.
bro.
Yeah. Man, well, I mean, do you have anything else to ask?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, man. Well, we appreciate you for coming, bro.
Sweet.
Taking the
Thank you
time out
much.
of your day, you know, just hop on here, talk with us. Where can people like reach you? Socials, website, like if someone wants to work with you or just, you know, maybe get advice, tap in with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last minute shout outs too?
Yeah, that as well.
Yeah,
Shout
totally.
outs, contact info.
Like I said, I work for both Arc'teryx Portland and Portland Gear, both great companies, make great products. I love all the stuff that we do there. Great community outreach, so definitely tap in with both of those. But yeah, you can follow me at, I finally nailed down like my actual name as my @, so my username on Instagram is just my name, Caed Folkestad, all one go.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I post most of my stuff there. It's pretty much a portfolio page. It's kind of a personal Instagram, but you know, that's where you're going to see the majority of my work going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Also have a archive page where I post some of my old music videos called Asher Gallery 2000. I think I had to include that part at the end, but Asher's my middle name and 2000's the year I was born, so that made sense for me. But yeah, just keep an eye on the stuff that I'm doing. I hope it's worth engaging with and checking out, but you know, ultimately just like I think it's just going to get better and better for sure.
Without a doubt, man.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to give a special shout out to Tech behind it, Franchise Studios. We got Sloth getting up in here too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Shout out
Miss
to them.
Miss Noise. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, I want to shout out our other sponsors, Joy Energy Drink, man. I just watched Inside Out 2, and I just got to say, there's a lot of joy inside of me. So, shout out some joy.
Yes, sir.
And overall, man, just shout out Portland Tattoo again, and you know, shout out our viewers, man. I can't thank y'all enough. Y'all keep us going. Make sure that you keep watching this so they renew us for season 3. And yeah, man, that's it.
Yes,
For
sir,
now
man.
out, powers out.
Yes, sir,
Caed
man. We'll
out.
see you
Let's
on the
get
next
it.
one.
Thanks, y'all.